everyone. Welcome back to another week of me teaching you from a video. Yay! So, I want to start this week off by telling you a story. This story is about a girl named Susie. Susie gets up every morning and goes to school. She has the same routine every day, probably a similar routine to you. Wake up, brush your teeth, eat breakfast, pack your backpack, and get off to school. Today was just a regular day. Susie wasn't preparing for any big tests. She didn't have unfinished homework. It was going to be an easy, regular day. And Susie loved days like that because she could kind of just tune out the day. As Susie walked into school, she's reminded that, like every day, she doesn't have a lot of friends. Kids aren't mean, but they don't really talk to her either. So Susie stays quiet. She puts her AirPods in, walks to her locker. She keeps her eyes down because if she doesn't make eye contact, people will just think she's shy and they won't really bother her. Susie does this every day, and she knows the way to her locker like the back of her hand, right? She could do it blindfolded. She knows what groups are going to be chatting where. She knows who's going to be talking to who. She knows what teachers are standing in the hallway. School is like clockwork for Susie. Maybe it's like that for you too. Then on her way to her locker, just across from her locker, actually, she notices someone crying kind of tucked in a corner, almost out of sight. But she notices because this is something that was different today than her usual journey. It's across from her locker, so what she does first is put her stuff in her locker, and Susie kind of looks around, and nobody's stopping to help this girl who's crying. Now, she's seen lots of people walk past. She's seen kids walk past and stare. She's seen teachers walk past and not do anything. She doesn't know this girl. She's not familiar with her. They're not friends, but that's pretty normal because Susie goes to a pretty big school, so there's a lot of people she doesn't know. But she walks up to this girl that she doesn't know and she says, "Hey, do you need help? Are you okay?" And the girl, with tears streaming down her face, goes, "Someone called me a really mean name and they hurt me, and I feel like nobody at this school likes me and I don't know what to do about that." And so what Susie decides to do is take her to the guidance counselor. And when she takes her to the guidance counselor, she sits there with her. And the girl's explaining what's happening to the guidance counselor. And what they find out is that these kids have actually been pretty consistently mean to this girl. Her name is Jeannie, that Susie found out. I can't remember if I told you that or not yet. So they find out that kids have been pretty consistently mean to Jeannie. So it's not new, but it still hurts because nobody likes being made fun of. The guidance counselor brings in the principal and they talk about it, and Susie sits there the whole time with her. She wants to make sure that Jeannie doesn't feel like she's alone. But eventually the guidance counselor and principal are like, "Susie, you need to go back to class." So she does, but first Susie says, "Jeannie, can I get your cell phone number so I can check in with you? And maybe today, if that's okay, I could come, if you're going to be in the guidance office, I'll come and eat my lunch here with you so you don't have to eat alone." Jeannie feels like this is the first time someone actually saw her. Susie didn't wake up that morning thinking, "I'm going to do something nice that's going to impact someone else today." Susie just was waking up for a normal day of school. She did her ordinary routine and noticed that someone needed help, and so she helped her. Sometimes we get so wrapped up in the idea of heroism that we think we need these big, grand gestures. I need to start a nonprofit. I need to join an advocacy group. I need to do something huge to change the world. But what if? Dream with me for a second. What if being a hero meant showing up for one person? What if being a hero was actually about how we act in ordinary, everyday moments? So this month, we've been talking about heroes and how heroes embrace God, themselves, and others, love the people around them, and know that they need diverse teams. When we think about heroes, we often think about saving the world in big ways, like we just talked about, defeating evil villains preventing someone from destroying a city. But in real life, being a hero is more about how you act in everyday, ordinary moments. Heroes are strong, courageous, and compassionate, and driven to make wrongs right in the world. Sometimes the best way to do that is looking around during an ordinary moment and seeing what wrongs need righted. We've talked about the Good Samaritan a lot lately, specifically through the lens of crossing the road to love the people who are hurting. But today I want you to recognize that the Good Samaritan was just on his way to run an errand. It was just a normal day. He didn't plan on running into someone who needed help. He didn't plan on spending that money to help someone and let him stay in an inn. Just like during the school year, every morning you walk to your locker just like Susie. The Good Samaritan saw someone who was hurting. So did Susie. Lots of people walked past, though. Have you ever seen someone drop their books and not help them pick them up? Have you ever seen someone crying or hurting and not stop to ask if they were okay? Have you ever seen someone be made fun of and not said anything? I have. For me, I think there are tons of times where I have walked past someone and not done anything with the excuse, well, they're not my friend. Or it's their friend's responsibility. Or they wouldn't want my help anyway. Instead of actually helping them. That's wrong, though. We know that, right? That's wrong. The thing that we see in the Good Samaritan is that people need help in ordinary moments. And no matter what, we should stop and love our neighbor. What would your school look like? Just dream with me for a second, okay? What would your school look like if every time someone dropped their books in the hallway, people stopped to help them pick them up, even if they weren't friends, instead of walking right past? What would your school look like if every time someone gossiped about someone or hurt someone else's feelings, we stood up for that person and loved them? What if anytime you saw someone alone, you invited them to sit with you? What if the person who always gets picked last in gym class was actually picked first, or even in the middle, so that they felt included? What if the person who's crying, hurting, weird, smelly, you laugh, but you're thinking of someone? What if they felt connected to someone? What if they don't want to sit alone, but nobody has ever reached out to them? What if instead of feeling hatred or jealousy or anger, we showed love? There's this scripture in the Old Testament, and it's in a book called Esther. And to give you a really basic description about what happens, Esther becomes queen, and she's a Jew. And the king was going to destroy all of the Jewish people. And Esther's uncle says that perhaps she was put in this position in that time in history to protect the Jewish people. What if that's true for you? Let me explain. What if God put you at your school at this time in history to protect the people in your school who are hurting? The people in your school who are alone? The people in your school who are being treated poorly because they look different? What if God put you there to be the person who includes and loves and shows up for people? Perhaps this is the moment for which you have been created. Perhaps you were put in your district, in your school, on your team, in your class, in your group project to love someone who is different than you, who has a different religion, background, culture, skin color, experience, or family dynamic. Perhaps you have been created to be the Good Samaritan at your school. What if you did that? What if you owned that? Is it even possible? Let me tell you, it is. Because you have a choice how you respond to every situation. You have a choice to walk past or show love. You have a choice to live out the love that God calls us to live. Remember the steps we talked about. Embrace God, embrace ourselves, embrace others. This is embracing others. Love the people around you. This is loving the people around you. And diversify your teams. This is diversifying your teams. You have the power to be a hero for other people. You have the power to show love to other people. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture because we can be heroes in ordinary, everyday moments. So what are we waiting for? We could change the world by loving other people in ordinary moments. How easy is that? Let's go talk about it in small group.